Okay, everybody, let's get started. So, you've probably been here a million times, especially with photography. You've gone somewhere particularly picturesque, and the picture you've taken is flat, not very good. Look, no saturated colours, it's overcast, that sort of thing. So, I'm going to show you some little tricks about how you can rescue a photo and how you can make what looks to be a really bland photo make really stand out. First things first, you've really just got to look at your photo when you get back to your when you get back. When you get this on the computer, you've got to get back and you've got to. How do you envision it basically? And you can only work with what you've got. So first of all, because that image here is so grey, there's hardly any. There's so much grey in this picture. It's ridiculous because it was such a. I think this was a January day in Paris. So straight away, because of the fog, I'm going to make this black and white. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. So I'm going to transpose that. So now what I'm going to do, to emphasise the fog and that sort of thing, because I do actually like the fog. It does create a sort of mystical look, which I quite like. I'm going to bring down the highlights a little bit so you can see a little bit more of the Eiffel Tower lurking in the distance. So we'll bring those almost all the way down, and we'll hike up the shadows a little bit. Now, what that does is obviously just brings out the detail in the shadows. Now, one thing that I don't like is it looks like the river is actually running uphill. So let's just correct that until we're happy. And the Eiffel Tower sits in the middle of those squares. It's going to be something like that. So maybe that's a bit too far. I'll come back a little bit and I'll stretch it out. Voila. Okay. Right, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the contrast. Now, I want to make this a high contrast image because it's black and white. I've really got nothing else to do with this picture really, so I'm gonna whack up the contrast a little bit, which I quite like, and I'm going to leave the clarity slider until a little bit later. The reason is because I'm actually going to add clarity to other different places, so I don't want to be adding clarity upon clarity, if you know what I mean. So let's get stuck into the actual details then. So I'm looking at that row of sort of oldie worldy buildings. That is what I'm going to look at first before I do anything. So what I really like in Lightroom 5 is the radial filter tool. I think it's called the radial filter tool. Is it? Let me just hover over it and it should tell me. Radial filter, yeah. So I've selected that, and now with my brush I'm going to use this building first, and I'm going to make an oval shape and just drag it along because this is the only building I'm interested in at the moment. So I'm just going to fatten that out a little bit, if that's a word, and I'm going to just increase the exposure and the clarity on this building. So the clarity is what that does. That just enhances mid-tone contrast, basically. So what you'll notice is the darks stay a similar colour and so do the whites. So that looks pretty good, and I'm also just going to enhance the. In fact, let me just double click that to get it back to normal. So I'm going to go with the clarity first, and I'm going to pick up the exposure a little bit. Highlights are going to go up, and so are the shadows. Okay, that might be a little bit too much, so I just drop the exposure back a touch, but that's quite nice. Okay, now I'm going to work on the buildings I can see at the end of the frame. Never waste anything in your picture. You can always create, something interesting in your shot. What the eye might not have looked at. I mean, these buildings are hundreds of years old, so I think just having them in the picture and not drawing any attention to them is a bit sacrilege, really. So I think that's the main point that I like to do that. So that just obviously gives the already. If I hit the backslash, that's how far we've come already. So it already looks a lot sexier. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to these trees that are masking on the left hand side. I'm going to just sort those out and do a similar thing. Oopsie daisy. And let's do that again. And let me just go to the top. And I'm going to do the whole of this little section. Now, if we don't manage to cover everything, that's fine, because in life nothing is perfect, and if things look too perfect, you start to raise eyebrows and think, That looks it's a bit iffy. I don't really understand why that looks so perfect, because nothing looks that perfect in my life. So yeah, let's get the shadows and the highlights up again, and let's just bring out those trees. So I'm gonna whack the clarity up quite high on that. That's cool. And the contrast, yeah, just give a bit of contrast in there. Now, I like the reason I've done that is because this building next to it is actually quite dark, and I quite like that. So I'm going to leave that as is. And the next thing I'm going to do is the trees in the centre of the picture, and this sort of greyish building on the right. So I'm going to, again, select another brush or another radial filter, and double click on that to take you back to 0. I'm going to highlight this area here. There we go. And this is going to look quite good, I think, because we're going to leave that little circular tree, that area above the circle, nice and dark. So it'll give it a little bit of, what's the word? It will sort of isolate it in a reverse kind of way, because we're not actually using that. So by not selecting it, we're adding a little bit of what's the word I'm looking for here? Some texture, really, I suppose. So now, looking at that straight away, I think that looks nice. I think that the trees, you can see the trees, the buildings behind it look quite interesting now. Now, the next thing that's screaming out to me is the bridge. I mean, I haven't even looked at the bridge yet, so that's the next thing I'm going to do. So again, I'm working with the radial filters a lot at the moment. I absolutely love it. In Lightroom 4, you didn't have this tool, and it is really, really a godsend, because you can select things, and whatever you select within that circle, you can choose how big or small, what grading it goes on, circular, spherical. That's not the word, is it? Oblong. Got everything with the word. You can obviously really manipulate light, which is a really useful thing to do. So let's hold up the contrast on that bridge, because you could argue, apart from the Eiffel Tower, it maybe is the best thing about the picture. So let's obviously not waste that. Now, because it's so dark, I think at the time I had to ISO the hell out of this picture. So I'm probably already at about 1600, because I was running out of light. It was an awful day, and that's why my picture looks quite grungy. But I think for this kind of picture, it actually leans towards that kind of look anyway. So a grungy look, a noisy look, accidentally can look good, I think. So that's my excuse anyway. That's what I'm going to go with. That's my excuse for all photography. Well, it's supposed to look rubbish. Okay, so let's do the same for shadows. Yeah, in fact, now I'm going to drop the highlights down, because I want to bring up the texture on the wall, and watch what happens when I hike up the clarity. Look at that wall. Yeah, it's just, yeah, that looks really good, and those tree trunks look really good. Okay, and let's get the contrast a bit higher. Lovely. Okay, so that's everything in brick done. Now, what is this? I've not really noticed that. Is that some sort of the back of a boat or something? Okay, I'm just going to clone that and see if I can get rid of that. So this is going to be quite a big operation. I don't know if I'm going to get away with it. I might have to leave it in or Photoshop it out. Let me see if I can just clone that. If I press heal, it's questionable, isn't it? Because those trees are never exactly going to match up. You know what? I'm going to leave that. I'm going to leave that in the bottom corner, because it's not too distracting anyway. Now, the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to look at the sky, because obviously it takes up almost half of the picture. So I'm going to select my gradient tool, which you probably just saw me do, and I'm going to take it down. So I'm going to take my exposure down. That's what I'm going to do. And remember, because I haven't selected the whole picture, all I've done is selected the just the gradient. So the gradient tool. So a gradient tool, by the way, is pretty much does a very similar job to actually buying one of these to put in front of your lens. And I think it's great, because I own a big stopper, and I would recommend one of them any day of the week for landscape photography. But with a filter, a graduated filter, it's probably just best. If you're like me and you won't use it every day, and you've got the software that can do the same job, then what's the point? If you are making money and you're a serious landscape photographer, then obviously you're going to need it. But at the moment, we don't need it, and it does the same job. So Yeah, you don't need that. So what I've done there, if I show you what I've done on the gradient filter, by hitting this little black and white thing here, I can show you what I've done. That was before, that's after. So we've just, that top layer of cloud just looks a little bit grungier now. Right, so now I'm going to move on, because I'm happy with that sky, even though it is a little bit grey, but it's kind of got that film look, which is what I'm after. The next thing I'm going to do now is select my brush tool, because I'm going to just draw over the Tour Eiffel, because I just want to bring out that clarity a little bit more, because I don't want to ignore the fact that we've got the Eiffel Tower in the picture. Now, it's obviously a main feature of Paris, so if you go there, you know, you're going to want to photograph it. And if you don't know Paris, this street scene could almost be anywhere in the world. You know, you might think, oh, is this Rome or Athens or whatever? But because of the Eiffel Tower, you know exactly where it is. So when I hike up the shadows, and I'll obviously just whack up the clarity as well, because we've still got that fog, so we've still got that mist. So, you know, it doesn't really change anything. It just makes it a little bit more prominent, which is what I want to do. I'll leave the shadows where they were, because I won't really do anything. And I might just drop the exposures even more until it looks a bit obvious that I've done it. Okay, that looks good. Right, okay, now next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to look at the water. So I'm going to quickly just draw over all the water, and I'm going to enhance the clarity and just put a few spots of light in, and so I can enhance that reflection as well. So let me just do that again. Yeah, okay, so let me highlight this, and we don't want the mask overlay visible, so I can show you what we're doing. So I'm gonna really stick the clarity up high, so probably about 2/3 of the way through. I'm gonna take the shadows down, because I want to show the contrast in the water, and also the highlights as well. And whack up the contrast a little bit, and also the exposure is going to come down slightly, because I'm going to put the overall exposure up at the end. Right, okay, so that's that done. Now I'm going to get some light spots. So my radial filter, I'm going to just emphasize this bit under the bridge. I'm going to make that nice. I'm going to make that nice and bright, I think. So here we go. Where she is. No, it was my radial filter, not my brush. That's why I'm getting confused. Okay, right. So you've got to be careful, because it could border on the starting to look a bit silly if I go too far. But that looks pretty good where it is, and the shadows can come down. So quite like that as it is. Now let's just get a little bit more texture in the water by using the filter down here. I'm just going to draw over this dark patch and make that a little bit brighter. There we go. That is nice. Yeah. I think it's really important to just look at a picture and think, oh, didn't notice that last time. Or, oh, look at that, that looks cool. I didn't see that. So that's what I aim to do. And I might just drop another little light spot in here. And let's just wipe that up a little bit. Highlights can come down. Good. One thing that is concerning me is this promenade. Now, I don't know the actual technical term for it, or, you know, in London we call it the South Bank, or, you know, that sort of thing. So I'm just going to draw over it with my brush, and I'm going to keep going, because it obviously goes all the way over the back. I want to bring a little bit more attention to it, so I'm going to, by pressing Shift, or is it Alt? Sorry, I can delete if I've gone, you know, if I've drawn anything I don't want to draw on. So I'm going to get rid of that, and let's have a little play around with that. So let's draw that pavement up a little bit and make it a little bit. Let's obviously whack the clarity up. That's going to look nice. Highlights, and the shadows can come up a little bit as well. Now already that looks pretty cool. I think that pavement looks nice. That walkway by the Seine looks very romantic, I think. So we've got quite a grungy image so far. Let's just show you how far we've come. Look at that. What an awful picture. and we've turned it into something quite sexy. Yeah, okay, good. I like it. I'm liking it. I'm liking it. I'm liking it. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm not really happy with the balance. Now, if you look at the top half of the picture, we've got the Eiffel Tower. We've got a nice little pigeon, or whatever that is, an eagle, in the top of the frame. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to be quite cheeky, and I want to clone that pigeon over here, and I'm going to have a little play around until they look good. And I'm going to have a little flock of pigeons. Is that the word? I don't know. Okay, let's carry on. So what I'm going to do is just get a nice little group of pigeons all together. So we've got a nice little merry band, and it looks a little bit more balanced. I'm going to... How many pigeons? 5. Let's have a look at that. So that looks quite nice. I think that's added a little bit more balance. Yeah, I quite like that. And in fact, I might even get rid of the original pigeon. Let's see how that looks. How does that look? See, to me, that looks better. I think that looks really good. So now what I'm going to do, I'm pretty much finishing up this picture now. I'm really happy with it. I'm going to just look at the actual exposure, see if I'm happy with it. Which, let me just have a little play with it. If I go a little bit darker, a little bit brighter. I'm going to go a tad brighter. So plus 0.15. I'm going to sharpen, because I really want to see a bit more detail. And the noise reduce a little bit. And the last thing I really like to do, which I think looks quite nice on landscapes, especially black and whites, is a vignette. See that? I think that looks really sexy. So that is a finished article, ladies and gentlemen. So let's have a look at before and after. Ugh, boring. Yes, nice and sexy. Okay, so if you've enjoyed this tutorial, thank you very much. Please subscribe, like, comment, and also check me out at andrewmaguire.co.uk. And I'll see you again. Thanks a lot, folks. Cheers. Bye-bye.